The professional wrestling business is hotter than it's been in years, and the good news just keeps rolling in, like The Undertaker used to do to that Limp Bizkit song. The newest, shiniest rumor to get excited about is that WWE 2K22 will be bringing back GM mode, the oft-requested game mode that last made an appearance in SmackDown vs. Raw 2008. That game was released in North America on November 13th, 2007. It's been almost 15 years since we've seen GM mode in a WWE game. Now, we wrestling fans live off of rumors and innuendo. Those things sustain us. But the reason we care so much about rumors and innuendo is because a lot of times where there is smoke, there is actually fire. Like AEW and CM Punk, or AEW and Adam Cole, or AEW and Bryan Danielson, or AEW in a major stadium show in the New York market. Or WWE giving NXT some new colors. All of them. All the colors. Anyway, let's quickly talk about how realistic it is that GM mode actually is coming, if we should get excited, and then we'll close with a quick top 5 while we got you here. So if you've been following the hardest working man in sports and gaming, our own Brian Unique Mazik, and been listening to his streams over at his personal YouTube channel, you'd know that he's been strongly hinting for some time that he thinks GM mode might be coming back. In fact, Brian straight up wrote for Forbes that it was a lock to be included. Mike Straw put out an article on SGO not too long after Brian's article, where a source told him, quote, "It's going to become the most played mode in the game, and this mode will sell the game," unquote. For their part, WWE 2K has said that there will be no official information until January. One would assume, of course, around Royal Rumble time. But WWE 2K executive producer Patrick Gilmore has tweeted this poll out, albeit 18 months ago, but this strongly suggests that WWE 2K knows how badly people want GM mode in their game. So I definitely trust Mazik. I think the general scuttlebutt has become so strong that we can all assume GM mode is indeed a lock to be in this game. We can all get excited. GM mode is probably coming back to WWE 2K. GM mode is the big bar at the top, by the way. I'm sure you can get that from context. But yes, that little small writing in the corner says GM mode. People want it. So, while we're celebrating, we're Operation Sports, and I'm Matt Ederer. And here are 5 things that WWE 2K's new GM mode needs to feel modern. As always, we are counting these down from least important to most important, starting with Number 5. Matches should be fun to watch. Now this is less on GM mode, and more on the game itself of course, but it would add a whole dimension to this potential GM mode if the gameplay was actually fun to watch, and resembled a good pro wrestling match in any way, or even like a good Super Smash Bros. Match. You know, there are a large subset of Fire Pro Wrestling players who don't actually play the game at all, and are content to watch CPU versus CPU sims of various dream matches just because the Fire Pro engine is so deep and so interesting. How many YouTube or Twitch leagues are we going to see if this GM mode actually does come to fruition? It'd be pretty cool if the matches didn't, suck to watch. Number 4. Wrestlers age and eventually retire. So a big problem with the UFC games career modes is that the CPU fighters don't age, or retire, or atrophy, or change at all. And new fighters don't come in. 10 or 15 years into your UFC career, you're still fighting the same guys with the same looks and the same movesets. The world around you doesn't really evolve at all as time passes. So this is something that a next-gen WWE GM mode could and should really play around with. If they wanted to go a step further, it would be interesting to be able to start a GM mode in any given year in the past, or maybe even in the future. But similar to a sim game like Out of the Park Baseball, wouldn't it be great to start a GM mode season 20 years ago and have the older veteran wrestlers of the day populate the game mode? Those wrestlers could change, they could atrophy with age, maybe they could even get gray or grow beards. They could one day retire, only for new wrestlers to then come in. It would be an interesting way to cycle out the rosters of these games and to keep things fresh and semi-realistic. This brings us to our next point. Number 3, a scouting system. A new potential WWE GM mode needs a scouting system. Almost every GM mode in every sports game of all time has some sort of draft system where new, exciting young prospects come into the league and eventually populate the entire game. So in a WWE game, I imagine these would be random, auto-generated characters of various sizes, strengths, and of course gimmicks. In the same way that auto-gen players make up your NFL or NBA franchises 5 or 10 years down the line, I imagine it would be a slew of random characters populating your GM mode in a couple years. But combining number 4 and number 3 on this list could give this game mode years of replayability. As time passes, much like in every other sports game, your older players should get worse, and you should be on the lookout as a GM for the new exciting talents in the game. And yes, I understand that Goldberg and Brock Lesnar are still main eventers in real life WWE. I think we can all agree those guys are exceptions to the rule. They're pretty special. And hey, if the scouting system's really good, maybe you too can scout 1 or 2 talents who also are main eventers into their late 50s. But for every Goldberg, there were 1,000 guys who stayed put in their own era. Number 2, you should be able to hire different agents to produce different types of matches. So in major professional wrestling companies, there are producers backstage known as agents. These agents work with the wrestlers directly to help decide what's actually going to happen in any given wrestling match. For example, the late Pat Patterson was apparently responsible for putting together the early WWF Royal Rumbles, and also a lot of the early WWF Triple Threat or multi-man matches. And if you think about it, they all kind of follow the same formula today. Pat Patterson was an extremely important figure in the history of WWE, and agents are secretly quite important to the product. So players should be able to hire various agents for their own team, much in the way that you would hire a coaching staff in any other sports sim. Various agents could have various strengths and weaknesses, which would have to complement your roster. So if you have a roster full of huge bruisers, you'd want some agents who know about brawling. If you have a roster full of cruiserweights, you'd want some agents who know about high flying. And much like in real life, your retired wrestlers from number 4 on this list could even later become agents and pass their knowledge and expertise on to the next generation. Number 1, the ability to select a winner in your sims. Now, this is so simple it almost goes without saying, but it is worth noting that no WWE 2K GM mode before has given players this option. WWE 2K Universe mode currently does allow players to select who wins in a sim, so there's no reason to believe that it wouldn't be there in a GM mode. But if we are dotting our I's and crossing our T's here, this is the most important change that needs to be made to the previous GM modes. This is what it needs the most to feel like a modern wrestling sim or just any kind of simmed video game. It was very annoying to have to play out every single match to make sure that the right person won. Some players are going to want to sim out their entire GM modes here. They're not going to want to play at all. Some are going to want to play very, very scarcely. Everybody should be allowed to control the destiny of their wrestlers like the mad scientists that they are. But what do you think that a new GM mode needs to feel fresh and modern? How excited are you to see GM mode maybe make a return, a triumphant comeback to the WWE 2K series? Please feel free to let us know in the comments section below, over at the Operation Sports forums, or of course on Twitter at Operation Sports. Well, that's going to do it for us today, but be sure to give us the Orange Cassidy thumbs up and hit subscribe for more of the best content in sports and vidya gaming. Don't forget to check out the mothership OperationSports.com for some of the best and most informative and entertaining reviews and coverage in all of sports gaming. We've got a great team here if I do say so myself, And if you liked me, well, my name is Matt Ederer. You can hear more of me over at Sunday Night's Main Event Radio, Canada's premier pro wrestling radio and podcast network. I'm going to be covering the great NXT Rainbow rebrand of 2021 next week with my co-host and good buddy Boris Aguilar. So type in SNME Radio into any place that you find podcasts to get that show. The big rebrand show is coming Wednesday, September 15th. Excited for that one. Thank you very much for listening. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there, everybody. CM Punk and Bryan Danielson and Adam Cole and GM Mode in the same month. What a time to be alive.